Apathy is the death of freedom. All those long phone calls, countless emails, and trips to Denver, they weren't just busy work, they were really helping real families and other kids like me. She was very passionate about anything that would encroach on parental rights and our freedoms. She was following those things closely and ready to go and testify and fight for our freedoms.
You've probably heard the quote from Ronald Reagan that we're just one generation away from losing our freedom. And freedom isn't free. It costs something. We're going to talk today with somebody who understands the sacrifice that it took to get homeschool freedoms today. And we have a legislative update. We have a lot going on in the state of Colorado, and we're often asking for help to testify and be a part of things. So I hope you're not overwhelmed, but encouraged by the little thing that you can do in order to preserve and fight for freedom and to stop evil from growing. So anyways, this conversation I think was really fun, really great, a good perspective. So stick around. Well, welcome. We're so excited that you are with us on the Colorado Homeschool Podcast. We have Charissa Goossen. Is that how you say your last name?
That's
Goossen.
correct.
I've heard your mother's name so often. So Charissa is a homeschool graduate. She's the fifth of seven, and you probably know her mom, Treon. She was very instrumental. In fact, I would say maybe the most influential reason for the homeschool law in Colorado. You've heard us talk about her. She has impacted so much. I love this because Treon fought for the fight while Charissa was in her womb. So Charissa is often referred to as the legislative baby by her mother. She has since passed away in 2016, but her legacy continues. In fact, we have a director of government relations that we started in lieu of Treon doing the work. She was an independent woman doing this on her own. So we are so excited to hear from you, Charissa. Thank you for being here. I love that she shared some story about how they were homeschooled. At first, it was like in the classroom with little desks, but then it evolved to just be wherever they were comfortable, outside and even at the Capitol, watching their mom testify, which that's true education if you ask me. So welcome, Charissa. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yes, I met Charissa at a fair at the Charis Bible College. And when she said, "You might know my mom," I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Yes, I know. I've never met your mom. I was a homeschool mom while your mom was an advocate, but I never got the pleasure of meeting her in person. So let's just dive into that. So the fact that you were the legislative baby, how did that play out? Tell me a little bit about that. Was this a whole family that referred to you as that, or?
It was mostly just my mom that would bring it up from time to time. I was pretty young the first time I remember her calling me that. She was just kind of sharing the story about the homeschool law and going through that with her friend Rory Schneeberger and fighting for that. And she was like, "Yeah, and I was pregnant with you, so you're my legislative baby." And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And as a kid, it just made me feel really special, like I had some small part in helping with that process, even though I was just baking in the oven and really had nothing to do with it. But even as I got older, it just means more to me because it represents that advocacy and family were never separate for us. It was literally a part of our lifestyle in our home. And I'm honored that I got to be carried through that season, like where it was one of her biggest accomplishments.
I love that so much. When did you realize, or it dawned on you that, hey, people know who my mom is and she made this impact? Do you remember when that became like, there's something more here?
So I don't remember an exact aha moment. It just felt normal. I mean, didn't everybody's mom go to the Capitol every legislative season? That was like my viewpoint growing up, was that was just normal. That's what people's moms did. But over the years, I started noticing how often people would approach her to say thank you. Almost every time that thank you was then followed up with, "I have all these questions about homeschooling." And it would turn into these long conversations, and just hearing about how my mom's efforts helped them and their families helped me keep perspective that all those long phone calls, countless emails, and trips to Denver, that they weren't just busy work, that they were really helping real families and other kids like me. So I think it was just kind of an evolving revelation of these things that sometimes felt like were taking our mom away from us was benefiting us and our whole state. And that really helped keep things in perspective.
That's a good point. I want to hear your perspective on that. You said these things that felt like they were taking your mom away from you. What did that look like for your family?
Yeah, there were seasons, especially during legislative season, that, she was superwoman. I don't know how she did it of, educating 7 children full time, running a household, being a part of our local church too, that my dad run, and just always on the go, but somehow staying on top of everything. There was a lot of sacrifice in the sense of there were times where like, hey, mom, we just want you to come hang out with us. And she did make time for us. But, as kids, we just didn't understand the full perspective of everything she was working on and the times that she was on phones with legislators and she'd be like, nobody scream bloody murder in the background while I'm on these important calls. And we're like, we're just playing.
Your mom had the legislator's direct phone number. That's amazing.
Oh, yes.
That's
And
amazing.
they often called her directly to review bills and go through wording and get her input on things.
Wow. So somebody told me this analogy, and I think it's so beautiful that we all have a plate. And some people have like a little teacup saucer that has a couple things on it. You put a scone on there and that plate is full. And then some people have platters, and you can put like a turkey dinner and the dessert and still have like snacks and grapes falling off the platter, and it still feels like, well, I could probably fit some more. It sounds like your mom is a platter woman.
Yes.
And how did that impact you all? Do you all sort of have that multitasking ability? There's 7 of you. I imagine you guys are all different.
Yeah, I think it really did set up, if it's something you're called to do, then the Lord will enable you to do that. And yes, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that draining level of work.
Yeah.
And so
That's so good.
Yeah, just being obedient to what the Lord's calling you into, and He will empower you to do it. And somehow there's time that's created to make space for that and your family and everything else in being faithful.
Well, hey friends, my name is Brian DeGillum, and I'm the conference director from the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference. Guys, I want to personally invite you to join me at the Denver Marriott Tech Center, June 11th through the 13th. You guys will have over 110 vendors to shop with, over 50 speakers and children's activities presenters, including our 3 keynotes, Ken Ham with Answers in Genesis, Rob Reno with Visionary Family Ministries, and Rosaria Butterfield, as well as a phenomenal homeschooling community and so much more. You guys, head to the RockyMountainHomeschoolConference.com to learn more.
So tell me about yourself, Charissa. What is your impact on the homeschool freedoms in general? What is your thoughts on that?
I don't have any kids at this time, but I'm so thankful that when I do have kids, I have that freedom to homeschool. And I think one of the practical things about it that I love is the freedom and the creativity that goes into it, of not having like a cookie cutter, this is how you teach a child. We're all different. We learn different styles, and having that creativity and freedom to develop, hey, this works for this kid, but not so much this kid. So let's really figure out the best learning styles for everyone. And then also instilling our faith and values into our children. Huge. And that's something that is the parent's responsibility, not the state education.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. I love that you can see that even not having children yourself. And I talk to a lot of families who don't necessarily homeschool. We're nonprofit. So there's a lot of like advocating for supporting our cause. And I go, this is about personal liberties. This isn't just about homeschooling your children. It's about protecting liberties and understanding jurisdiction. Like God ordained the family. So your mom, I just think she really is a hero in our state, but she was just a regular mom who cared. And then after the homeschool law, she didn't just stop. She continued. Do you remember any of the things that she was super passionate about and got engaged with as far as legislative issues here in our state?
Oh, yes. She was very passionate about anything regarding parental rights, whether in the homeschool realm, whether it was healthcare, anything like that would encroach on parental rights and our freedoms. She was following those things closely and ready to go and testify and fight for our freedoms. And so I really appreciate that she was always looking out for that.
Do you have any memories of going to hearings and watching her testify?
I think one thing that really stands out is she always talked about, no matter what bill is being presented, like always going in with respect and, always addressing like the Speaker of the House with great respect. And even if it's a heated issue, we can only control how we come across and being the most respectful that we can. And so that really set the tone of how to handle conflict also, and looking at how to work with people you really do disagree with, but not get into an all-out fight.
Listen, we need that lesson in our world, don't we?
Absolutely.
It feels like you can't have a conversation with anybody without it becoming personal attacks or very, very heated and emotional. So did you ever see people respond to her with anger and emotion and heat?
There were times in session that, things definitely got a little tense, but for anyone that ever met my mom, regardless what political side you were on, she loved everybody. And I think people felt that, and they would almost feel like adopted by her.
When we were talking about doing this interview, Charissa was like, I think this will be a really great way to honor my mom. And one of the things that I talk about with homeschool families all the time is the importance of just being faithful with the little, and taking care of your family is like the most important thing. So how do you feel like your mom did that in honoring, taking care of you guys and raising you? And you said she was like superwoman, but really, wasn't it just everyday life?
It really was. She was so intentional about knowing what each kid liked. And that's a lot to track for 7 kids. Like even for each of our birthdays, like she was very intentional in paying attention to whatever it was we were into in that season of life, and focusing in on that for our birthdays, and just being aware and present with us, and really utilizing the times that we did have to focus on each other.
Do you think that your mom would say that was her greatest accomplishment is you guys, or would you say is her bill?
I think she would say us selfishly.
Is the thing that we get to actually see in heaven, Lord willing, right? That we can bring people that we love and have shared the gospel with and trained up with us. And I know that obviously you don't have children and you're not homeschooling, but that you have a respect for that.
Yes.
The liberty and the fight that your mom fought. Do you have any homeschool memories that are just sort of special that you can recall?
I do. I have a couple. One was when I was about 8 years old. My sister got this American Girl paper doll. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a company that focuses on teaching history and telling stories about girls 9 to 10 years old. And of course, I simply had to have one once I saw my sister had one. And then it was a cool opportunity because my mom let us really invest in that, and then use that in our schooling to kind of help spark that interest into history. And I really did develop a love for American history by diving into these stories, making me want to learn more and dive in. Another quick memory is my mom taught a government class for our co-op, and we decided to do our own little assembly so we could learn and practice how a bill becomes the law.
Boy, she definitely had the inside scoop on that.
She definitely did. And it was a lot of fun because I got to represent the bill, and it was about making chocolate as a regulated substance. And we just had so much fun with it, and it sparked so much debate and controversy, but having that like on hands, even though it was silly, but it was a fun way to learn. And even all these years later, I still remember that experience. And I believe everyone from that class does.
Yeah, I love that. So you saw up front, not only did your mom make it fun, and I love that you said anybody who met my mom liked her. She loved everybody. Was she very outgoing and like friendly and talking to people? You have to be. I don't know have you gone to the Capitol as an adult?
Yes.
And did that evoke memories, or how did that make you, what was that experience going as an adult?
Yeah, it definitely, like the last time I was there, my mom was actually receiving an award. And so it was just really cool to see her giving a speech and receiving that. And she received so many awards. But yeah, just seeing it as an adult at that time and realizing, that's not my calling, but having such a respect for what she did and other people that also helped trailblaze, like Rory Schneeberger and many other homeschoolers that have stood up and continued the fight.
I love it. And not just homeschooling, because if, like you said, anything that had to do with parental rights, she would get involved in. Do you recall any of the other bills that were like, this is major, sound the alarms, everybody come?
There aren't any specific that come to mind, but I know, especially with anything related to healthcare or forcing vaccines and things like that, that would really encroach on the parents' right over what their child can or can't have. She was on it.
So when you see people today, because we are facing quite a lot of legislation and pushback in Colorado, particularly on parental rights, religious freedoms, we haven't seen a whole lot about homeschooling specifically, but nationally, we're seeing a lot more legislations that's coming to regulate homeschooling more. And the pushback that we get is like, well, we're okay, we're fine. And there is this apathy it's really prominent. What is your perspective on that? What would you say to the person who's like, we don't need to bother with it?
I would say apathy is the death of freedom. A quote that my mom would often share. I don't know if you're familiar with Martin Niemöller. He was a German preacher during World War II, and he didn't really stand up against anything that was going with the Nazis. And so he ended up going to a concentration camp and survived, thankfully. And afterwards, he wrote this poem in reflection. It's really short, if you're okay with me sharing.
Please, yeah.
So it's called First They Came. So it's first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. And she would often open her talks with that, saying, we cannot be passive. Like, we are only, like Ronald Reagan said, one generation away from losing our freedom. Like, we should definitely, enjoy the freedom we have that people have fought for, but never become passive. Because
that's so true. I didn't recognize the name, but I have heard that poem before. It is so true. Like, it's so easy to convince ourselves that who am I? What difference will I make? And it makes a difference. Seeing people, we do our day at the Capitol every April, and we're always saying we just need families to come. We want the legislators to see regular families. And it's not just about homeschool rights. It's about freedom in general, liberties in general, parental authority in general, right? So the apathy is most often rooted in feeling insecure. Was she like raised in a home that ran for office or was civically involved?
Yeah, not at all. Like, she kind of just got into this out of passion because my oldest sister was in kindergarten and she had a real negative experience with one of the teachers. And my mom said, that's it. We're going to figure out something else. And she was kind of, I think, already on the fence about, what other options are there. And she got connected with Rory Schneeberger. And then the rest is history of let's figure this out.
Yes. It took a couple years of them advocating too, because it was failed in 87.
Yes.
And then in 88, it did pass. Her perseverance and the fact that she continued, she passed away in 2016, but wasn't she at the Capitol all the way up until the end?
She was.
Yes.
Very much so.
How's that impacted your family? Are you guys all involved in watching what's happening with the legislation?
Yes, there's several of my siblings. Well, all of my homeschooling siblings do homeschool, which is awesome. And so they tend to also keep a very close eye on what's happening. And I know they've also been active at times in calling, our senators or Congress people to advocate for different things. So it has lived on in different ways, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, I want to leave a legacy. My family, I'm a first generation Christian. And so to see in my family a change, and my kids are following the Lord, they're teaching their kids about the Lord. That is amazing to me. And probably the number one thing, but the ripple effect that your mother and Rory, and it's always about the women because I know they had the time, but I'm sure your father was involved.
Yes, he supported my mom, and he was very busy working full time and also running a full time church. So there was just a lot of busyness.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that your family was a ministry family either. That is a very full platter. We're in ministry as well. And not the senior pastor, but still it's just a large commitment, a large part of our life. So to find that extra time to go to the Capitol, the sessions are January and through April. So was your mom there like every day or just every week?
It depended kind of what was in session, but usually at least once a week during that time she was there. And not just the travel, but the constant phone calls and emails and reading through bills and defining language.
Yeah. I got an email from our director of government relations, which again, we started this whole person, this field, because of your mom. We supported her. Check. The organization supported your mom in her nonprofit organization to be a lobbyist, to be down there. But we continue it because we see how valuable it is. It's so essential to have somebody watching it, because the sheer amount of bills that they try to pass every year, generally it's around 700 bills a year. And to read through them and sit through them, and you might think, oh, it doesn't really matter. This is like all about agriculture. And I'm trying to remember, I had that great anecdote. This is not my world. That's what I'm trying to say. It's so important to have somebody who will read them and just be the watchman, like from Ezekiel, just sounding the alarm and going, hey guys, this law is coming down the pike and we need some people to come testify. So my encouragement, if you're listening to this podcast, is listen to those updates. And when there is a plea for you to testify, come testify. You can do it. It's so short. Have you yourself ever testified, or have you seen your siblings testify?
I personally haven't, but you never know. It could be in my future.
Yeah, having the person that's bold enough to speak, even though sometimes when I do testify, I feel like, well, I've said what other people have said, but just that volume of record and the repetition of saying, no, this is not okay, is what we need. I love the poem that you shared, but even I'm so bad about crediting who said it, but the only thing for evil to prevail is for a good person to do nothing. So
Yes.
We have to do things. We have to just stand up, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a platter like Treon and be there all the time. How about the rest of your family? Tell me what about them and their lives. Are they all in Colorado still, or you said they're homeschooling?
Most of them are in Colorado. My oldest brother lives in Minnesota, and him and his wife out there have 7 kids, and they're homeschooling. So they've kept up the big family tradition. They actually have another one on the way. So we're all excited for that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like families that homeschool, Charlie Kirk said this, if you want to change America, get married and have more kids than you can afford, right? And I think it's a big testimony when it's a second generation family who homeschooled, because there were so many skeptics about homeschooling, and you're not going to have a proper education, and they're not going to be able to think for themselves, or they're going to be weird. That was the biggest one.
Oh,
it's so
yes.
funny. And clearly, Charissa, you're a delight. I appreciate you being here and telling us about your mom, and your family made a sacrifice of time. And I appreciate that too. So thank you for that. Legislative baby, it mattered. We like to close all of our interviews by asking our guests a homeschool tip. And I know that you're not a homeschool mom, but as a homeschool student, is there a tip that you would leave homeschool families with?
Absolutely. I would say find ways to make it fun, because that's how it stays memorable, and to teach in stories, because even Jesus did that with his parables, and that's how we learn.
I love that. You gave us a couple examples, and both of them were very fun. I remember the American Girl stories, and we did the same thing homeschooling, and having a mock session about regulating chocolate. That's hilarious. So very fun. Well, thank you, Charissa. I appreciate you being here. And again, thanks for your family and all that you have done for all of our freedoms.
Well, thank you. And thank you for continuing the fight. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us today. The Colorado Homeschool Podcast is a ministry of Christian Home Educators of Colorado. We have been motivating parents to disciple the next generation by embracing home discipleship that is Christ-centered, parent-directed, and free from government control. We invite you to join us in this mission. If you want to support homeschooling in Colorado, go to check.org/donate. In the meantime, share this with your friends and make sure you subscribe. That really helps us. Thank you.